Today on the Enemy Metalworks YouTube channel, we narrow a 486 quick change exactly that much. Probably the wrong way. Hi everybody, we're on the Enemy Metalworks YouTube channel and we're narrowing a quick change rear end for the Public Enemy Fuel Altered. I came to the experts.
You might be saying this isn't Evan's shop, but yeah, so I'm Zach from TuquesNtires. We're really good buddies, and there's actually a funny story with this quick change. If you watch my channel, we built the C1 Chevelle. I'm sure Evan will maybe link my channel onto this, but we put a quick change rear end into my car, and actually to get that quick change, I had to trade him this quick change to get it because he bought one originally. But he wanted wide 5 and I wanted 5-on-5, so
I was going to convert mine and he was going to convert his, so we sort of
basically did the old switcheroo, if you want to say. But basically what we're going to do in today's video is Evan needs this axle actually a lot shorter to fit into his altered drag car. So we're going to actually show you guys how we're going to go about shortening this axle and, you know, all the measurements and stuff we're going to do to actually put it together. Is it the right way? It's probably definitely not going to be the right way to do it.
Comment down below how we did it wrong, because I couldn't find any videos of how to do it right, so we're doing it our way.
Yeah, so we're gonna get this thing set up, we're gonna drain the oil out of it, and we're gonna actually mark some lines on here, how much we're gonna make it shorter, and then yeah, we're gonna go from there and show you guys how we're doing it. So let's get after it.
Hell yeah. Alright, so we got our winner's quick change here. This is a 486. I can't remember if we referenced that before. The trouble with it is it's 64¼ inches wide from face to face. The Enemy's rear end is currently 49. We got to pull 7 3/8 off of each side of this guy.
So we got a list here of like kind of our measurements, what we've took in, what we got to take off, and basically off of each side. What Evan has here in his hand is my old axle that we took off of my rear end because this thing was super bent. And
it's bananaed.
Yeah, you can definitely see that it has a curve in it. But for reference purposes, we know that the measurement for how much it bottoms out to here is 5 inches. So we needed to take 7 3/8 off of each side. So what we've done is we've marked a line here at 2 3/8. So we know that's where we're going to actually cut the axle, and then when we go to push it in, it's going to bottom out at this face here. So that should be 5 inches and how much it's going to go in. So we did that on both sides, and then because Evan has these caliper brackets here, what we're doing is that we're hopefully going to clock them at the same position that they're at right now. So we just put a scribe line. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's pretty hard to see. But we just put a scribe line across the tube here and a point on the bell so that we can clock these at the same position. Because we're not going to get taking these hubs off and everything. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to try to, once we cut this thing, we're just going to wiggle it in place. So we're going to see how that goes. And then we put a mark on the top of the bell here, just to reference so that we know where everything was placed when we actually go put it back together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mark some like a line on this with our pipe cutter, just so that we can get this right around. And the way we're going to go about this is that we're going to actually cut the tube first, and then we're going to heat the bell up to actually take that piece out of it, just because that way we only have to heat the bell one time, and when we get there, we're going to tell you why that's wrong, but we're going to get to actually cutting these axles, and then we'll come back to when we're actually heating this thing up. What do you think, Evan?
If anyone knows anything about magnesium, you'll probably figure out why this is not the recommended procedure for you know, actually getting these axle tubes out. Magnesium's notorious for catching on fire. But that's why I have experts. So we're gonna be
experts.
You shouldn't do it, but we can do it because we're on YouTube.
Do what we say and not as we do. Yeah, I think is what they say.
Like if you want to do it for your YouTube, you can, because then you'll be the expert.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's get to cutting. saw that we got the axle all cut apart. This is definitely not the way to do this, but just to save us like some heat, we are like, you saw that we cut off this tube. It's perfectly straight, so we know it's not bent. We're going to throw some vice grips onto the tube that's remaining in the bell. I don't know, this just seems the easiest way to do it to save us, you know, obviously propane and time or whatever. We will have to let this cool down because this is definitely not right. Like what they
usually put it in an oven.
Yeah, they recommend putting this bell into an oven and heating it up to temperature to take this out of there, but we don't have an oven here. So what Evan has in his hand is he has this big, beautiful torch for killing weeds with a propane tank, and we're going to heat up the bell evenly, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand on it, and then I'm going to try to use vice grips and pull a piece out, and then simultaneously we're going to take this piece and we're going to jam it into the bell. It's just that easy. So,
safely. We're going to do all that safely.
So
heating up magnesium doesn't immediately make it catch on fire. So we're going to do it safely. And I'm sure there's a fire extinguisher somewhere. So
right there. There's a fire extinguisher on the wall.
So we're fine.
We're good. Me and Dad did this on my Quickchange and we had no problems. So
like we said earlier, we are currently the experts because we have the YouTube channel.
We are professionals.
So that means this will be fine. The cameraman never dies, so it's fine.
Yeah. Luckily it's on a tripod. So, all right, so we're going to get heating this thing up and then we're going to try to slide this thing in. So here we go.
We did our heating procedure that was highly calculated and very thought out, and we managed to get the old one pulled out. Zach had to tack on a bar real quick, just didn't have enough leverage, and I think the vice grips were just getting a little hot. But as soon as that one came out, we blasted it, you know, with as much heat as we could get on it, and the new one just slid straight in. We already clocked it and had our lines lined up, so it's just going to be a stubby rear end now. Yes. But the car that it's going in is very narrow.
Yeah, so now we're just going to let this one cool down. I think we're going to grab some lunch, and then we're going to let the oil still drain out of that other bell just because there was a bunch in there, and then basically repeat the process, and we'll come back when we're bolting it together and checking torque specs, eh?
Oh, yes. Torque to spec.
Sweet. Beautiful. All lined up, looking slick.
It's definitely a lot shorter.
Alrighty guys, so we got both sides cut down now. You can see that the axle's a hell of a lot shorter. You can actually see Evan's taller than it now, which is pretty wild. So you can see here that we got it to our mark on both sides on there. You can see Evan's holding the piece that we actually cut out of there. So big shout out to my old man for actually drilling and tapping these holes. We just showed that just a little bit, and he hammered in the race because that actually fell out when we were heating this up. Because you can see that in the video, we used Evan's torch that he has to actually heat this up to actually get the axle out. We had to end up welding a tube on to pull out the little piece here, but that made it a lot easier. But you can see now how we got this thing set up, and we're checking it for backlash. So Evan has my old spool in his hand. I put a locker into my car, but we're just going to walk you guys through kind of how we have this here to check backlash and what our torque specs are. So you can see,
and we're actually torquing it to spec because we're at Zack's shop and not my shop. So.
That's right. We're gonna make sure this thing's right. So basically, these bolts here that actually go through the case, you bolt these down to 35 foot-pounds. You start with the front one over here because it doesn't pass through, and you bolt both sides like that, and then you start on this one, and then you kind of work yourself around, just getting it all bolted in a circle, making sure that we have even pressure. And then once you get that done, you want to make sure that you use this ring gear lockout here. And this is only used for checking backlash. So you just loosen the nut off, put it down on the ring gear just so it's holding it nice and tight. So then you can see that we have our gauge on here. And we're aiming for 4,000 to 6,000. So we're going on that's like a heavy 6, just because this rear end is worn out. And that we had to set this up because when we first put it together, it was actually like solid and there was no backlash whatsoever. But like I said, you can see that Evan has this spool in his hand and he's got it split apart here. If you want to show that, Evan. Yeah. So you can see that they shim the bearings on either side to actually either put or, subtract backlash on that for moving that back and forth. So it's ever so slight. We ended up having to take 2 shims off, put them on the other side just so that we could get it to that point. So yeah, it's what do you think, Evan's pretty well perfect?
I think it's flawless.
Man, this thing's pretty wicked. So we got
as good as it's ever going to be with me owning it.
That's right. So we got RTV on this thing. We still have to throw a couple bolts into the tubes here, just because we're missing some hardware just because they used other stuff, but we actually, tapped it, I want to say, properly. So these are 3/8 24. The hole size there, and I forget what was the drill size. I think it was 21/64. I think that it got drilled out to. So we're actually going to put a bead of RTV around the axle tube here as well, just to seal it so that no oil is going to come out. A little RTV on these bolts, just so they're not going to leak. And yeah, so basically she is pretty well set up. So we're going to get this thing turned down, and we're going to end off this video.
Well, there you have it. We have shortened this 486 Quickchange. I think we ended up 49.5 face to face, which is perfect for the enemy.
Yeah, just a little bit longer than what Evan wanted, but Evan said it's a little better to be longer than to be shorter. Yeah. We can all use a couple extra inches.
Exactly, never hurt nobody. And yeah, these rear ends make it super easy to narrow. The fact that the tubes aren't welded in.
Yeah, luckily enough that this came out pretty well, no problem. Little hiccups that we had to weld that pipe onto there and, get messy with some RTV afterwards, but it's definitely looking pretty sweet. I can't wait to see it actually in the enemy. This is going to be pretty wicked.
No one's really put one of these in one of those cars in probably 50 years, and maybe that's for a good reason, but I intend to find out.
I don't know. It's going to be super cool. I'm excited to see it.
All right, well, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
And, thanks to you again, Zack, TuquesNtires YouTube channel for helping me do this.
Hey, no problem, Evan. It's always fun hanging out.
Oh,
yeah, definitely go check out my channel. We did this as well on my channel, but on a different rear end. So, if you're looking for more information that way, definitely go just try to find that video. But this video is, pretty much the same thing.
It's an excuse to have dinner. And
and this took us, I don't know, what, like 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, on it really wasn't bad. And the axles inside, you can order them in increments. So really, you narrow it to what you need. You buy the axles that are close, and then you can always kind of
shim them out.
Yeah, so yeah, they make it really easy to work on these. So great hot rod rear end if anyone's looking for one.
Yeah.
They look super cool hanging out under something.
Yeah.
So yeah, check Zack out and salute the beaver.
Cool, awesome. Thanks guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Salute the beaver.